Welcome back aboard our ship on a continuous journey towards the essence of truth. Since our voyage began, we have been sailing through the waves of questions, searching for answers, and moving step by step toward the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance. In the previous episode, we contemplated the question, could Hinduism be the message of Allah to humanity? Today, we continue our voyage across this vast sea to explore a new question. Could Buddhism be the message of Allah to humanity? Let us continue the journey together, for the path ahead is still long, the heart still beats with passion, and the mind remains thirsty for more knowledge. In the heart of ancient India, where philosophy merges with spirituality, one of the religions that left its mark on human thought emerged, Buddhism. It appeared more than 2,500 years ago, carrying a different perspective on existence and suffering. It arose as a reaction to certain teachings and practices of Hinduism, which was dominant in ancient India. It was not founded on the worship of a deity, but on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the prince who abandoned a life of luxury in search of truth. Siddhartha Gautama attained enlightenment, and his wisdom became a guiding light for his followers. Buddhism sees the world as not being created by a supernatural being, but as the result of natural causal processes. Although Buddhism does not acknowledge a creator Allah, it does not deny the existence of spiritual beings, such as the devas in higher realms. However, they are not deities in the absolute sense, as they are neither eternal nor possess absolute power over the universe. A Buddhist does not perform rituals of worship directed toward the Creator, but seeks to understand the Dharma, which is viewed as the cosmic law governing existence and the path to liberation from the cycle of birth and death. In many Buddhist households, there is a small altar containing a statue of Buddha or Buddhist symbols, such as the Dharma wheel or lotus flower. Buddhists offer flowers, incense, water, and candles as symbols of appreciation and meditation. These offerings are not considered sacrifices, but rather a way to remind oneself of Buddha's teachings and values. Temples and monasteries are considered major centers for spiritual practice, but they are not places of worship in the traditional sense. Instead, they serve as places for meditation, learning, and spiritual connection. They often contain statues of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, enlightened beings who help others. Visitors perform circumambulation around the stupa, a Buddhist structure symbolizing wisdom, as a meditative act. There are no Buddhist priests as in Hinduism, but rather monks and nuns who dedicate their lives to studying and teaching the Dharma. Some Buddhists offer food or donations to monasteries and monks as part of their spiritual practice. Meditation is the core of spiritual practice in Buddhism, as it is seen as the tool that refines the mind and frees it from illusions and worldly attachments, allowing one to achieve inner peace and enlightenment. In some Buddhist traditions, mantras, sacred phrases, are chanted to cultivate inner peace and mental focus during meditation. Pilgrimage is considered an optional spiritual journey, not a religious obligation. Buddhists visit sacred sites associated with the life of the Buddha, such as Lumbini, his birthplace, and Bodh Gaya, where he attained enlightenment. Alongside meditation, there is veneration, where Buddhists express deep respect for Buddha and his teachings. Buddhists do not venerate Buddha as a deity, but as an enlightened teacher who revealed the path to truth. Veneration is practiced through offering flowers, lighting incense, or bowing before Buddha statues, not as an act of worship, but as an expression of gratitude and respect for a source of wisdom. Although yoga is often associated with Hinduism, some yoga practices also exist in Buddhist traditions. However, they're not meant for communion with a deity, but rather for achieving deep insight into the nature of existence. Bodh Gaya in India is considered the holiest site in Buddhism, as it is believed that Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. Pilgrims visit the site for meditation and prayer, and the Mahabodhi temple is one of its most prominent landmarks. Sarnath is the place where Buddha gave his first sermon after enlightenment, explaining the Dharma teachings. It contains the ruins of ancient monasteries and a massive stupa, and it is considered an important center for study and meditation. Kushinagar is the place where Buddha is believed to have passed away and entered final nirvana. Pilgrims visit to meditate and commemorate his teachings. The Mahaparinirvana Temple, which houses a reclining Buddha statue, is located there. Lumbini, located in Nepal, is the birthplace of Buddha. It contains Lumbini Garden and various Buddhist monasteries. Sripada Mountain, also known as Adam's Peak in Sri Lanka, is believed to have Buddha's footprint. It is considered a sacred site where pilgrims climb the mountain for meditation and blessings. The Vesak festival is the most important Buddhist festival, commemorating Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing away on the same day. It is celebrated by lighting lamps, meditation, and acts of charity. Purnima, or Full Moon Day, is considered sacred in many Buddhist traditions, during which Buddhists engage in meditation and good deeds. Losar is a festival celebrating the Tibetan New Year, including prayers, meditation, and traditional performances. Upasatha is a day dedicated to meditation and spiritual retreat, where Buddhists abstain from pleasures and devote time to studying Buddhist teachings. Buddhist teachings began to be recorded after Buddha's death, when monks gathered in Buddhist councils to preserve his teachings accurately. This process continued over multiple historical periods. Sutras contain the sayings and teachings of Buddha and serve as the primary source of Buddhist thought and spiritual practices. Vinaya Pitaka includes the rules and ethical teachings for monks and nuns, forming the foundation that regulates monastic life. Abhidharma consists of philosophical and analytical texts that explain the nature of mind and reality according to Buddhist understanding. The Theravada school is considered the oldest Buddhist school, adhering to Buddha's original teachings. It emphasizes that salvation is achieved through individual effort and meditation, not by relying on any external power. The Mahayana school emerged later and is considered more inclusive, believing that enlightenment is accessible to all, not just monks. It believes in the existence of bodhisattvas, enlightened beings who delay entering nirvana to help others. The Vajrayana school, also known as Tibetan Buddhism, is a blend of deep meditation, rituals, and esoteric teachings. It relies on energy-based practices, mantras, and deep meditation to attain rapid enlightenment. Materialist philosophical schools, such as the Sarvastivada school, analyze the nature of reality and time in a rational and analytical manner. They denied the existence of an eternal soul, focusing instead on causality and karma. Mahatma Gandhi, an Indian leader, saw Buddhism and Hinduism as sharing the principle of nonviolence, ahimsa. He praised Buddha's teachings on compassion, tolerance, and rejection of fanaticism. Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk and modern-day thinker, criticized certain traditional Buddhist practices, such as rigid teachings and failure to adapt to modern times. He advocated for a more open and practical Buddhism. Some contemporary Tibetan monks criticized certain ritualistic aspects of Tibetan Buddhism, such as excessive veneration of symbols and icons. They argued that such practices may distract people from the core Buddhist teachings. Historical studies indicate that Buddhist texts have undergone developments and additions over the centuries, especially due to oral transmission in their early stages and the differences between Buddhist schools in interpreting the teachings. Masao Abe, a researcher in Buddhist philosophy, pointed out that the texts of the great sutras in Mahayana Buddhism were not present in early Buddhism, but appeared centuries after Buddha's death. He mentioned that different Buddhist schools added new interpretations and philosophical explanations over time. Richard Gombrich, a scholar in Buddhist studies, and Rupert Gethin, a specialist in Buddhist philosophy, argue that the early Buddhist councils were not merely a literal documentation of Buddha's words, but involved reinterpretation and reformulation of teachings, leading to differences among Buddhist schools. This view is supported by Etienne Lamotte, a renowned French historian in Buddhist studies, who notes that these councils did not merely preserve the teachings, but contributed to the development of Buddhist doctrines over time. Since Buddhism does not claim to be a divine revelation from Allah, we will not evaluate it based on the criteria of true religion, but rather through reason and pure human nature. To understand the extent to which Buddhism aligns with reason and innate human nature, we must analyze its teachings and core principles using clear criteria, including clarity of concept, logical consistency, harmony with human nature, justice and fairness, practical applicability, and final goal. In this study, we will analyze Buddhism based on these criteria, examining its sacred texts and fundamental teachings to judge it through reason and pure human nature. Our goal is to reach an objective evaluation that determines whether Buddhism is a sound philosophy acceptable to reason or a deviant intellectual path that cannot lead to true salvation. When we see a tree, we understand that it came from a seed. When rain falls, we search for its source in the clouds. This is the nature of our minds. They do not accept emptiness nor ignore fundamental questions. However, Buddhism avoids answering the most important question that the human mind asks: who created us, and who brought the universe into existence? Buddhism does not provide a clear answer about the origin of existence, but rather focuses on how to deal with suffering without explaining why we are here in the first place. Some Buddhist texts even warn against thinking about the origin of the universe, considering it an unbeneficial question, which contradicts the nature of the human mind that always seeks to understand the truth. In Anguttara Nikaya, there is no creator and no absolute beginning. The universe has existed eternally and is constantly changing. The human mind, by its nature, seeks the first cause because everything in the universe has a cause and a source. Even in science, it is assumed that the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe, which contradicts the idea that the universe is eternal without a beginning. If every event has a cause, then it is illogical for the universe to exist without a cause or a creator. Yet, Buddhism believes in causality, which they call karma, meaning every action has a consequence. However, it does not apply this principle to the origin of the universe. If everything has a cause, then it is logical to ask, what is the cause of the universe's existence? Who established the law of karma? Buddhism does not answer this question, but rather avoids addressing it, making its intellectual system incomplete. In Daya Nikaya, there is no creator of this world, nor do I say that I have come to reveal the will of a god. Here, Buddha denies being a prophet or a messenger from Allah, but rather just a seeker of truth. However, this raises a question. If there is no creator, then who created Buddha and the universe? Ignoring the question is not a solution. It is escaping the truth. When a person faces a difficult question, they have several options, searching for a logical answer that aligns with reason and human nature. Acknowledging ignorance about the question while continuing the search. Ignoring or denying the question under the pretext that it is unimportant. Buddhism follows the third option, claiming that the question about the origin of the universe and the creator is unimportant, and that the focus should only be on how to end suffering. However, this is not a rational solution. It is an escape from questioning. If a child asks you, "Where did I come from?" is it logical to respond, "That question is unimportant. What matters is how you deal with your daily problems"? Or would you search for a logical answer to explain to him how he came into existence? If ignoring questions were a solution, Then why do we search for the origin of diseases, planets, and natural phenomena? Why don't we simply say, these questions are unimportant. Let's only focus on pain and suffering. Innate human nature inclines toward belief in an organized creator. When we see a well-crafted wristwatch, we do not say it appeared by chance. Rather, we assume it has an intelligent creator. When we observe the complex and precise system of the universe, it is only natural to assume that there is a wise creator behind it. However, Buddhism completely avoids this idea, leaving humans in a state of ambiguity without providing a logical explanation for their existence. Humans seek a purpose in life. They want to know, why are we here? What happens after death? What is the purpose of my existence? Buddhism does not provide a clear answer to these questions. Rather, it focuses solely on ending suffering and seeking liberation, nirvana. But why should we even seek nirvana in the first place? What is the ultimate goal of all this? If you were on an unknown path, would it be logical to keep walking without knowing your destination? Or would you ask for the right direction? Buddhism denies the existence of a permanent self, claiming that a human is merely a collection of changing emotions and thoughts. However, at the same time, it believes that a person's actions, karma, carry over into a new life. In sutta, nipata, all phenomena are devoid of self. When one sees this with wisdom, they detach from suffering. If there is no permanent self, then who bears the consequences of karma in the next life? How can beings be punished or rewarded for their past actions if there is no real person that continues from one life to another? In Prajnaparamita Sutra, all things in this world are mere illusions, like a mirage, and have no real essence. If the world is an illusion, this implies that all human experiences are not real, including knowledge, morality, and even Buddhism itself. How can Buddhism claim to guide people to truth and enlightenment if the entire world is just an illusion? Is this not a contradiction? Humans perceive the world through their senses and direct experiences, and it is illogical to deny its existence entirely. René Descartes, the rationalist philosopher Descartes, is famous for his principle, I think, therefore I am, which is based on the necessity of a conscious, thinking entity. He criticized philosophies that deny the existence of a creator because they ignore the principle of the first cause, which asserts that everything must have a logical first cause. Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, is considered one of the most important thinkers of the modern era. He criticized philosophies that fail to provide a convincing explanation for existence. Buddhism avoids addressing the question of Allah and the Creator, which makes it philosophically incomplete. Kant believed that faith in Allah is essential for understanding morality and the purpose of life, something Buddhism lacks. Friedrich Nietzsche, the critic of religions Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, was known for his criticism of religions. Although Nietzsche was highly critical of religions, he also criticized Buddhism because it advocates eliminating desires and striving for annihilation, nirvana, making it close to nihilism. He considered Buddhism a philosophy of surrender because it does not seek the source of creation or the purpose of life, but focuses only on ending suffering. Nietzsche argued that humans should create their own values and purpose, whereas Buddhism sets liberation from existence itself as the ultimate goal, which contradicts human nature. Richard Swinburne, the philosopher of religion Richard Swinburne, a British philosopher specializing in the philosophy of religion, argued that the universe is intricately organized, pointing to the existence of an intelligent designer, something Buddhism completely ignores. He criticized philosophies that deny the existence of a creator without offering a compelling alternative explanation, as this makes them inconsistent with reason and logic. Swinburne stated that belief in a creator explains why physical laws exist, why morality exists, why human consciousness exists. Whereas Buddhism does not provide any explanation for these matters. A system claiming to organize life must provide clear answers about existence's origin and fate to offer a correct vision for life's challenges. Logical consistency is crucial for any worldview to be accepted, meaning teachings should not contradict and must provide a coherent explanation. Logical consistency requires harmonious, fundamental principles. If an idea claims something but denies it elsewhere, it suffers from a logical flaw, making it unacceptable to reason. Contradictions regarding Buddha's nature. Buddhist texts present conflicting views on Buddha's identity. Was he an ordinary human, a supernatural being, or a symbolic example? Different schools hold different views, revealing contradictions about his identity. Buddha as an ordinary human. In Majjhima Nikaya, Buddha claims, "I am merely a human, not a god. I attained enlightenment through my own efforts." This suggests Buddha was a human searching for truth, but his claim lacks objective standards and external validation. In Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Buddha states, "Everything is subject to decay, even my body." He died like any human, not immortal. Despite this, some followers worshipped him, though he never claimed divinity, highlighting contradictions. Buddha as a supernatural being. In Lalita Vistra Sutra, Buddha is born taking 7 steps, claiming, "I am the supreme in the world." In Daya Nikaya, he perceives all past lives and knows all beings' fates, suggesting unlimited knowledge and supernatural features. In Daya Nikaya, Buddha has 32 distinctive features, like golden skin and a long tongue. In Avadamsaka Sutra, he manifests in infinite forms simultaneously. In Kavada Sutta, he flies and walks on water, portraying him as a supernatural being with miraculous abilities. Etienne Lamotte criticized the unclear nature of Buddha's identity, noting historical sources are vague and filled with legends, making it difficult to verify his true personality and teachings. Richard Gombrich noted the lack of reliable texts from Buddha's time makes it difficult to provide an accurate picture of him. Most Buddhist records were written centuries after his death, mixing his teachings with later interpretations. Human nature seeks connection with the Creator, belief in a purpose for life, and hope in the face of challenges. Therefore, any philosophy that denies these innate tendencies or presents a vision that ignores them is incompatible with what humans naturally feel within themselves. Dhammapada, eliminating all desires, is the way to end suffering. In Majjhima Nikaya, exert effort to attain nirvana, for it is the ultimate goal. Humans naturally have innate desires, such as the desire for food, marriage, success, and love for family. Not all desires are a source of suffering. Some are necessary for life and development. If the solution is to eliminate all desires, this would mean that life itself loses its meaning, because humans move forward in life driven by the desire to achieve certain goals. The contradiction in desire and nirvana. If all desires must be eliminated, then why should there be a desire to attain nirvana? How can a person strive for something without having the desire to reach it? How can a human live without any desires? Dhammapada, abandoning work and the pursuit of wealth, is the path to liberation. Humans need to work to secure their livelihood and sustain their lives. So, how can work be considered a negative thing that must be abandoned? If everyone stopped working and producing, then how would life continue? Roger Garroey, a French philosopher and thinker, criticized Buddhism for its lack of harmony with human nature. He pointed out that the desire to achieve goodness, the pursuit of knowledge, and the drive for progress are essential aspects of human nature. One of the most important criteria that determine the truthfulness of any philosophical or religious worldview is its practical applicability in real life. Practical applicability means that religious or philosophical teachings must be compatible with human nature, align with human capabilities, and be achievable without conflicting with life's necessities. Sattva Nipada. Just as fire is extinguished when it finds no fuel, so too must a person abandon all desires to attain liberation. Taitsu Uno, a Japanese Buddhist scholar, analyzed traditional Buddhist teachings and their compatibility with modern life. He pointed out that traditional Buddhism sets moral and spiritual standards that are difficult for an ordinary person to fully achieve. Teachings such as abandoning desires, isolating oneself from the world, striving for nirvana. These make it challenging for individuals living in modern, demanding societies to apply them practically. He also criticized the idea that suffering arises entirely from desires, arguing that some desires are essential for human life. Essential desires include the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of justice, and the effort to build stable societies. Any intellectual or religious worldview must provide a clear and just vision for the distribution of rights and duties. It must also address how to deal with the poor and the oppressed, and its ability to establish a balanced society that preserves human dignity. Buddhism emerged in India under the Hindu caste system. The Hindu caste system granted high privileges to Brahmin priests, while the outcasts, Dalits, lived in poverty and humiliation with no possibility of social mobility. Theoretically, Buddhism rejected this caste-based hierarchy. Sutta Nipada, a person does not become of a certain caste by birth, but by their actions. This indicates that Buddhism opposed the idea that a person's status is determined by birth and instead emphasized that actions define one's position. Despite this theoretical stance, Buddhism failed to abolish the caste system in practice. In some cases, it even adapted to it, as Buddhist societies in Asia continued to follow a social structure similar to Hinduism. Majjhima Nikaya. Just as all rivers are respected when they merge into the ocean, so too should all people be equal. Dhammapada, a person's previous life determines their status in the current life, and whatever they suffer now is a result of their past actions. In the first text, Buddhism calls for equality among people. In the second text, social inequality is justified based on karma, claiming that a poor or outcast individual suffers due to their actions in a past life. This closely resembles the justification of the Hindu caste system, where blame is placed on the individual for their own suffering instead of addressing social injustice and achieving fairness in the present life. Kula Malunkyaputta Sutta and Majjhima Nikaya. Do not concern yourself with fixing the world. Suffering is a part of life, and each person is responsible for their own fate. This perspective promotes passivity and discourages efforts to correct social injustices, making Buddhism incapable of providing practical solutions for social justice. If every individual is only responsible for their own fate, who will fight against social and economic injustice? Buddhist monks have historically served as advisors to rulers in many countries, offering moral guidance on just governance. A prime example is during the reign of Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE, where monks played a major role in shaping his policies toward nonviolence and religious tolerance. Dhyana. A righteous ruler is one who listens to the wise and follows the path of justice. However, their influence was not always strong, as rulers were not obligated to follow their advice. Some rulers ignored Buddhist teachings when they clashed with their political interests. In some Buddhist societies, monks influenced the formation of social laws, particularly concerning public morality, such as prohibiting alcohol and gambling during certain historical periods. For example, in Thailand and Myanmar, Monks help promote laws encouraging family values and ethical principles derived from Buddhist teachings. Anguttara Nikaya. A person must follow the path of morality, for justice is not achieved through force, but through wisdom. However, monks were not official legislators. Their role was limited to moral influence rather than enforcing laws by force. Monks follow the Vinaya Pitaka, an internal legal system that regulates their behavior within monasteries. It includes disciplinary actions, such as expulsion or isolation if a monk violates the rules. Vinaya Pitaka. A monk must adhere to the rules of conduct, not take what is not given, not lie, and not harm living beings. Vinaya Pitaka. If a monk violates the ethical rules, he may be expelled from the community. However, these laws only apply to monks and not to the general public, which limits their influence on broader societal governance. In some countries, monks have played a direct political role, especially during periods when Buddhism was the official state religion. In Tibet, the Dalai Lama was both the spiritual and political leader until the Chinese invasion in 1959. In Myanmar, Burma, monks were actively involved in political protests against military regimes, such as the Saffron Revolution in 2007. However, in some cases, religion was used to justify oppression or elite rule, leading to an unjust fusion of religion and politics. Sashi Murai, a Japanese Buddhist philosopher and thinker, analyzed traditional Buddhist teachings and their relevance to social justice issues. He pointed out that many traditional Buddhist teachings focus more on individual salvation rather than social reform. Instead of striving to change unjust conditions, Buddhism often encourages followers to accept suffering as an inevitable consequence of karma, which may lead to ignoring the real causes of economic and social injustice. Major philosophies and religions seek to provide clear and convincing answers about human destiny after death, as this knowledge is not merely an intellectual curiosity, but it directly influences how individuals live their lives and perceive existence. Buddhism adopts the concept of karma as a mechanism of reward and retribution, where it is believed that every action a person takes brings consequences, either in their current life or in a future life. In Dhammapada, every living being is the result of its actions. Whoever sows good will reap good, and whoever sows evil will reap evil. Buddhism also embraces the concept of reincarnation, where it is believed that a person is reborn repeatedly based on their karma. Majjhima Nikaya. Just as a flame passes from one candle to another, so too does life transfer from one body to another. Majjhima Nikaya. Just as the soul moves from one body to another, so too do the consequences of actions follow a person through different lifetimes. Buddhism holds that all suffering in life results from past karma, even if a person does not remember it. Anguttara Nikaya. If you see a child suffering or an innocent person facing hardships, remember that these are the results of their past actions. Majjhima Nikaya. A person does not suffer because of others, but because of their own karma. If a person only suffers due to their past actions, this implies that there is no real injustice in the world. However, in reality, some people suffer due to the actions of others, such as oppression wars repression. How can a child be responsible for their suffering if they do not remember any past actions? This perspective suggests that Buddhism justifies suffering rather than addressing it. Buddhism states that every action has an inevitable consequence. Yet some people can escape the effects of karma through meditation and knowledge. Satanipada. No one escapes the consequences of their actions, but the wise can free themselves from karma through meditation and knowledge. Dhammapada. Whoever realizes the ultimate truth and follows the path of nirvana can be liberated from the results of karma. However, this raises an important question. If karma is a natural law like gravity, how can it be nullified through spiritual practices? Nirvana is the ultimate goal in Buddhism, and it signifies the complete extinction of desires and suffering. But what happens after nirvana? Is there consciousness? Is there an experience of happiness? Mahima Nikaya. Nirvana is the final liberation, where there is no rebirth, no suffering, and no existence. Dhammapada. Everything in this life is transient, and suffering arises from attachment to life and desires. Sadhanipada. Nirvana is the ultimate liberation, where there is no pain and no rebirth, but a state of absolute peace. A logical question: why were we created with a nature based on desires, only for the ultimate goal to be abandoning them? If the final solution is the elimination of desires, this makes life meaningless, since desire and striving are essential aspects of human nature. If a person feels nothing after nirvana, isn't this the same as complete annihilation or non-existence? Buddhism sees lack of feeling, lack of pain, and lack of existence as happiness. Dhammapada. Absolute peace is true happiness, where there are no desires and no suffering. However, this contradicts our rational understanding of happiness, because happiness comes from achieving desires or experiencing something positive. If nirvana means not feeling anything, how can it be considered happiness? This makes nirvana closer to a state of lifelessness, where there is no consciousness or experience, which empties it of any meaningful appeal. Mahima Nikaya. Just as a fire is extinguished when its fuel runs out, so too does the cycle of suffering end when nirvana is attained. But if the final goal is extinction, then why were we brought into existence in the first place? For any system to be valid in organizing life and guiding humanity toward truth and peace, it must be based on clear principles consistent with human nature. Humans naturally seek truth, and if they fail to find it, they will remain in a constant state of doubt and confusion. If a person does not know where they came from or where they're going, how can they determine their goals and the foundations upon which they build their behavior and decisions? Systems that avoid addressing these fundamental questions or deny their importance reduce life to a meaningless event. This leads to individuals losing their identity and sense of meaning in life, resulting in inner turmoil and instability, making them incapable of facing challenges and crises with resilience. Buddhism may have started as a reform movement, seeking happiness through detachment from desires. Buddhism borrowed certain beliefs from Hinduism, such as karma and reincarnation, while denying the existence of a creator and rejecting idol worship. Over time, however, it evolved into a mystical, spiritual philosophy, incorporating impractical interpretations that caused it to deviate from its original ethical purpose. With the rise of capitalism, which associates happiness with consumption and wealth, meditation emerged as a means of psychological relief. However, what was promoted was not true meditation based on deep reflection on the laws of the universe and life, but rather temporary relaxation techniques. The spread of Buddhist thought through meditation presents a hidden danger, as it is introduced as a simple mental exercise, yet it carries underlying ideas that shape a person's worldview. This can lead to abandoning ambition and responsibilities, decreased productivity, and a decline in innovation. Even worse, this path may gradually introduce Buddhist beliefs, such as reincarnation and cosmic energy, which could eventually lead some to venerate Buddha or believe in spiritual beings that control destiny, moving further away from rational and scientific thinking. Ultimately, this process may result in worshiping Buddha's statue, as it fulfills the innate human need for connection with the Creator in search of peace and reassurance, but without any religious obligations, imposing commands or prohibitions. Unlike the divinely revealed religions, Buddhism offers a form of spirituality detached from religious duties, making it an easier alternative for those seeking tranquility without committing to obeying the Creator or accepting moral and religious responsibilities. This is what makes its spread a hidden danger, as it transforms from a philosophy of meditation into an alternative religion that satisfies the spiritual tendency in humans, but without leading them to the truth. Could the Creator be pleased with such a life? Were we created with a specific nature, only to be expected to reject it and live in an entirely different way? If all of humanity followed the path of these monks, will we truly find happiness, or would life cease to exist entirely? I do not believe that Allah would be pleased with this, just as we would not want our children to abandon the home we built for them, or to reject the blessings we provided, choosing instead isolation and deprivation. How can we imagine that Allah would want us to abandon all of it? Would we accept such a life for our children, or would we grieve for them, knowing they have forsaken what we prepared for them to live in isolation and deprivation? If Buddhism has failed to provide a coherent and just vision for life, death, and final destiny, then it is only logical that we continue searching for the right path. In our next journey, by Allah's will, we will move on to the study of Judaism, the oldest of the divinely revealed religions. Could Judaism be the religion that Allah has chosen for humanity? Could it be the true path that mankind has been searching for? This is what we will explore in the next lesson. The search for truth may seem long and difficult, but it is a journey worth every effort to reach the ultimate goal. It is a journey that requires patience, reflection, and deep thinking, but in the end, it holds the most profound meanings and values. Perhaps the answer to this question will be a new key to a deeper understanding of our lives and our purpose. The horizon is still wide open before us, and the journey is far from over. I ask Allah to make us among those who seek knowledge and act upon it, so that our knowledge may be a light guiding our way in this world and the hereafter. And may peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you.